First main, fill in the blanks. The framers of our constitution had a vision of a dash. The answer is a welfare state. Second, we should protect dash from pollution by industries and mines. The answer is environment. Third, we should protect every dash or place of national importance. The answer is monument. Fourth, minimum wages to workers is a dash principle. The answer is labor welfare principle. Fifth one, the structure of the constitution can be decided on the basis of dash. The answer is amendments. The last one, the dash of India is a combination of both rigid and flexible factors. The answer is constitution. Second main, answer the following. Who is given the supreme power of the defense forces? Answer. The supreme power of the defense forces is vested on the President of India. Second, list the divisions of the defense forces. Answer. The three divisions of the defense forces are the Indian Army, Indian Navy, and the Indian Air Force. Third, where is the head office of the Army? Answer. The head office of the Army is in New Delhi. Fourth, name the naval base of the Indian Navy and where is it situated? Answer. The naval base of the Indian Navy is called the Seabird and it is situated in Karwar. Fifth one, list the important training centers of the Indian Air Force. Answer. The important training centers of the Indian Air Force are at Bangalore or Bengaluru, Hyderabad and Dindugal. Dindugal. The last one, define constitutional amendment. Answer. The formal or official changes made to a constitution is known as constitutional amendment. Give one word. Protecting the country from foreign aggression is the primary duty of. The answer is defense forces. Second, the forces necessary for the protection of the islands and the coastal lines is the Indian Navy. Okay. Third one, the fifth biggest force in the world is the Indian Air Force. We'll move on with the next main. Match the following. Indian Army, the chief is known as the General. Indian Navy, it's Admiral. And the Indian Air Force is Air Chief Marshal. With that, we complete answering the assignment questions. Now let us start with today's lesson. We all know that we got independence in the year 1947. And the dynasty that we are going to learn today has ruled till then. Now, which is that dynasty? Can you all take a guess? Yes, it is none other than the Wadayars of Mysore. The Wadayars started their rule from 1399 and ruled up till 1947. Now, what does Wadayar mean? Wadayar means the lord or the lordship. If we have to trace their rule, let's take the India map. We know Gujarat, and in Gujarat there is the Dwaraka region. So Yadavas were ruling there. They came down to the south and established their dynasty in the south for 600 years. Later, the same dynasty continued as Vodayar. Okay, I hope it's clear. The first ruler of Mysuru Vodayar was Yeduraya in 1399. So, who was the first ruler? It was Yeduraya in 1399. You all may have a doubt. Then what about the Vijayanagara Empire that was established in 1336? Yes, at that time, even the Vijayanagara Empire existed. But we have already learnt that Vijayanagara Empire was a huge one and just one king cannot rule the entire portion, isn't it? And hence, there were smaller kings who served as the subordinates to the Vijayanagara Empire. Like how we learnt about the Nayakas, Nadaprabhus, etc. So likewise, the Mysore region was taken care of the Vodayars. So they used to collect and pay tax to the Vijayanagara kings. But after the Rakkasatangadi battle, that is, after the end of the Vijayanagara Empire, Mysuru became independent. They started their own rule. We have learnt about this in detail when we learnt the Vijayanagara Empire, isn't it? After their decline, the dynasties became independent. They started their own rule. So that's how Mysuru became a separate dynasty. Okay. The Vodayars ruled Mysuru and their capital was Srirangapatna and their emblem was Gandaberunda, G-A-N-D-A-B-H-E-R-U-N-D-A, Gandaberunda. An emblem is something that represents the state or a nation. Even today, the emblem of Karnataka is Gandaberunda. In this chapter, we will be learning only about the most prominent rulers and their achievements. Chikkadevaraya, 1673 to 1704 CE. Chikkadevaraya was a prominent ruler. He implemented many pro-people measures. Pro-people measures means to do a lot of reforms or to take certain measures for the people. He opened the Attara Kacheri, Attara-Kacheri, with 18 departments. He built a dam across the western stream of river Kaveri near Srirangapatna and provided irrigation facility. He introduced thrift in his administration and enriched the treasury and was conferred with the title Navakoti Narayana. So what was the title? Navakoti Narayana. So why was the title given to him? Because his treasury had 9 crores during his reign. So Navakoti Narayana. Okay. Mysuru state was prosperous during the reign of Chikkadevaraya, but the later kings were weak. So the administration was overseen by the Dalvois, D-A-L-A-W-O-Y-S, who ruled in the name of the king. So a Dalvoi is nothing but a commander-in-chief. Hyder Ali was an eminent commander in Dalvoy Nanjarajaya's army. He was brave and adventurous. He won many battles and accumulated army and wealth. This in turn made him gain respect from the king. He suppressed a revolt in his capital city and restored the kingship of Krishna Raja Wadayar and removed the Dalvoy and took over the administration. The British rule had already begun in India by then. The British came for business and gradually became powerful in politics. So there were 4 battles waged by Hyder Ali and later by his son Tippu Sultan against the British. And these battles were called the Anglo-Mysuru Wars. ANGLO-MYSURU, Anglo-Mysuru Wars. You will be learning about this in detail in your higher classes. Tippu Sultan died in the 4th Anglo-Mysore War. He is known as the Tiger of Mysuru. After the fall of Tippu Sultan, Mysuru came under the rule of the British. They handed over only the administration to Krishnaraja Wadayar III, but Mysuru became dependent state of the British. We will now learn about Krishnaraja Wadayar III. He was only 5 years old. Purnaya was appointed as the Diwan of Mysuru. As they felt that Krishnaraja Wadayar III did not suppress the revolt of Shivamoga properly, they dethroned the king and brought the administration of Mysuru under the commissioners. So after him, Mysuru came under the rule of the administration of commissioners. So who were the commissioners? Mark Cubbon, after him Louis Bentham, then Chamaraja Wadayar X, and then Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadayar. We will now know more about Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadayar. Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadayar ascended the throne in 1895 and he was only 11 years old then. The administration was run by his mother Nanjamani. The direct rule of Nalvadi started from 1902. He was well educated and laid a firm foundation for the modern state during his long reign. He was visionary and had a soft corner for the welfare of the downtrodden. He formed the Millers Commission, MILLERS, Millers Commission, in order to ensure the participation of all sections of the society in administration. So in the report, as per the report findings, it provided a fact on the actual situation of the over-representation of the Brahmins in government and education. The report further identified that there was a non-representation of other communities. So by this commission, he ensured the participation of all the sections of the society in administration. Achievements of Nalvadi Krishnaraja Wadayar. He gave 371 acres of land and 5 lakh rupees grants to J.N. Tata to start a science institution in Bengaluru. It is there even now. I'm sure you're all aware of it. Okay. In 1907, The Legislative Assembly was established. This enabled people to discuss their problem through their representatives. He built the KRS Dam and developed agriculture in the state. The present Mysuru Palace was completed in 1910. The Mysuru Economic Conference was started in 1911. He passed the order that backward class should get special representation in government service. He gave voting power to women for the first time. So these are the achievements of Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar. It is very important, so please learn it properly, children. Nalvadi ushered in development in education, industries, banking, and other important sectors by the role of a guide and a motivator. He appointed talented divans who could translate his vision into reality. Among them, Sir M. Vishweshwaraya and Sir Mirza Ismail are important. Mahatma Gandhi ji called the Mysuru state of Nalvadi as Ramarajya and called him Rajashri. I repeat, Mahatma Gandhi ji called the Mysuru state of Nalvadi as Ramarajya and called him Rajashri. There is no mature ruler like Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar in the early part of 20th century. Mysuru Palace was built in the year 1910. The fire had destroyed the previous wooden palace. Skilled workers had come from different places for its construction. The main hall, that is the Darbar, was painted by famous artist Raja Ravi Verma. Financial difficulties aroused during the construction of the KRS Dam across river Kaveri. The royal family sold its gold ornaments in Bombay and raised money for the construction work. This is for your information, children. We will now learn about Sir M. Vishweshwaraya. He is considered as the sculptor and creator of modern Mysuru. Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar appointed him as the Diwan of Mysuru in 1912. He started the sandalwood soap factory at Mysuru. Central Industrial Workshop, leather processing and metal factories were started in Bengaluru. He made primary education compulsory and gave importance to technical education. He was the first Kannadiga to receive the Bharat Ratna Award in 1955 by the Government of India. The Mysuru Bank was started in 1913 to provide support to the growth of industries. I am sure you all know that the Bharat Ratna Award is the highest civilian award of the Republic of India. Next, Sir Mirza Ismail, 1926 to 1941 CE. Diwan Mirza Ismail is also considered as one of the builders of modern Mysuru. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, glass industry, porcelain factory, fertilizer industry at Belagoda, sugar factory at Mandya, matchstick factory at Shivamoga, and iron and steel factory at Bhadravati were all established as per the wish of Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar by Sir Mirza Ismail. Irrigation facility was provided to the Mandya district by constructing the Irwin Canal, IRWIN, Irwin Canal. The Brindavan Gardens was established in front of Krishnarajasagar Dam. A number of hospitals were established during his time. Thus, Sir Mirza Ismail was instrumental in implementing the visions of Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar. He was also the classmate of Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar and was successful in translating the vision of Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar into reality. After the death of Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar, Jayachamaraja Vodayar came into power. He was the last ruler of the Mysuru state. Inclusion of Mysuru state. After the declaration of Indian independence, a satyagraha started in front of the palace for the inclusion of Mysuru state in the Indian Federation under the leadership of K.C. Reddy. Who was K.C. Reddy, children? Yes, very good. He was the first Chief Minister of Karnataka. So as a result of this satyagraha, Jayachamaraja Vodayar accepted the demand to become a part of India. And so, a responsible government came into existence under the leadership of K.C. Reddy on October 24th, 1947. Jayachamaraja Vodayar later became the first governor of Mysuru state. With that, we complete Vodayars of Mysuru. Now children, as the government has deleted some portions, I could not go into detail. And so, I have just touched up on Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, but you need not have to worry. You will be learning about this in detail in your higher classes, okay? And even under administration of commissioners, this year you will have to learn only about Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar and whatever we have done today. Markaban, Lewis Bentham and Chamaraja Vodayar 10 you will be learning in your higher classes. Okay, we'll now move on with the assignment for Vodayars of Mysuru and get into the second chapter. Fill in the blanks. The Legislative Assembly was started in the year dash at Mysuru state. Second, the Attara Kacheri was established by dash. Mahatma Gandhi ji called the Mysuru state of Nalvadi as dash and called him dash. Next, Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vodayar provided grants to dash to start a science institute in Bengaluru. The last one, the title conferred on Chikkadevaraya was dash. If you all remember, we have completed the Sultans of Delhi, right? We learned that the last Lodi ruler, Ibrahim, was defeated in the battle of Panipat by Babur, isn't it? Who was Babur, children? Yes, he was the one who laid the foundation of the Mughal rule. So today, the chapter we will be doing is the Mughal Empire. Babur invaded India in 1526 and after overthrowing the Delhi Sultanate, established the Mughal rule. There were three empires in the history of India. One is the Mauryan Empire, then the Gupta Empire, and the third one is the Mughal Empire. The founder of the Mughal dynasty was Babur. He was ruling a small region in Afghanistan called Kabul and was waiting for an opportunity to attack India, which was rich and prosperous. Babur belonged to the Mongol race, M-O-N-G-O-L, Mongol race. The word Mughal comes from Mongol. Rose was introduced to India by Babur. Taking advantage of the growing weakness of the Delhi Sultans, Babur invaded Delhi and ended their reign. But he could not stop at that because the Rajputs and the Afghans resisted him strongly. The brave warrior that he was, Babur, with his powerful weapons, forced the opposing armies to retreat. Very soon, Babur conquered Delhi, Agra, and the surrounding areas and established his kingdom. But he died soon. His son Humayun ascended the throne. Though Humayun managed to overpower his enemies in the beginning, he had to face defeat at the hands of the Afghan chieftain Sher Shah Suri. Having lost his kingdom, he fled to Persia and stayed there for about 15 years. When the Afghan rule in India weakened, Humayun invaded India and conquered Delhi. However, he died within a short period thereafter. Humayun's son Akbar had always aspired to build a vast empire in India. And with the same intention, he tried to persuade the Rajput rulers to support him. And few of them did join hands with him, but Rana Pratapa Simha of Mewar opposed Akbar fiercely. He was a proud and a brave warrior. Later, a fierce battle between Rana and Akbar took place at Haldighat, that is Rajasthan. Though Rana Pratapa Simha was defeated in the battle, he did not bow down to Akbar. Thereafter, Akbar engaged himself actively in military campaigns for many years. As a result, he conquered Gujarat, Bengal, Kashmir, Kabul, and other areas and built a vast empire in India. Akbar's achievements. Administration. Akbar was an able administrator and a broad-minded ruler. He possessed many of the qualities needed for a great king. He was not a despotic ruler. Despotic in a sense being brutal. So he was not brutal, okay? He realized that in order to preserve his vast empire, it was necessary to win the trust of his Hindu subjects who formed the majority. He appointed Hindus to high posts in his court. He withdrew the personal tax called jizya, Jizya, which was imposed by the earlier Muslim kings on Hindus, and also the tax levied at the pilgrimage centers. So this jizya was actually a personal tax which was permanently put on the non-Muslim subjects. So Akbar removed that. Akbar's land revenue policy was well received by the people. It was framed by his revenue minister, Raja Todarmal. So who was his revenue minister? Raja Todarmal. Very important, please remember. Religious policies of Akbar. Akbar was tolerant to other religions. He constructed a prayer hall, Ibadat Khana, in his new capital, Fatehpur Sikri, where he discussed religious matters with leaders of various Islamic sects. He invited Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, Parsi, and the Christian leaders to discuss their views on religious issues. As a result of such discussions, he evolved a new sect called the Din-e-Ilahi, Din-e-Ilahi, Din-e-Ilahi. It incorporated some of the best principles of different religions. However, it could attract only a handful of followers. Patronage to arts. Akbar patronized literature and art. Faizi, Abul Fazl, and Birbil were the distinguished poets in his court. The immortal singer Tansen adorned his court. Akbar's contributions to architecture and painting are also remarkable. Jahangir and Shah Jahan, who succeeded Akbar to the throne, continued his policies to a great extent. Shah Jahan achieved fame by getting the famous Taj Mahal built at Agra, the Mammoth Red Fort at Delhi, and other stately palaces. We now move on with Aurangzeb. Shah Jahan's son Aurangzeb is the last well-known Mughal emperor. He ruled for a long period of 50 years. During this period, the empire expanded in all directions, but at the end, it declined rapidly. Religious policies of Aurangzeb. He was an Orthodox Muslim. He stayed away from drinking wine, gambling, entertainment, and music. He lived a simple life. He gave up the liberal policy of Akbar and he reimposed the jizya. We learned what jizya was, right? This led to many political rebellions. The Sikhs and the Rajputs strongly opposed Aurangzeb in North India. Shivaji rose in revolt in the Deccan. The revolts continued for a long time, and as a result, Aurangzeb lost enormous wealth and a large part of his army, and worst of all, his prestige. Many provinces of his empire became free. The Deccan Wars sapped Aurangzeb's economic power as well as military strength. Being exhausted, he died in the Deccan. With his death, the Mughal Empire was greatly weakened. Sikh rebellion. The Sikhs were provoked by Aurangzeb's religious policy. The Sikh Guru Tej Bahadur was publicly executed in Delhi. His son Guru Gobind Simha organized the Sikh community into a militant sect. The members were designated as Singh, S-I-N-G-H, which means lion. They had to possess the 5 Ks at all times. These were Kesh, long hair, Kanga, Kumb, Kirpan, sword, Kacha, a pair of knickers, and Kara, steel bracelet. This custom is prevalent among Sikhs even today. The decline of the Mughal Empire. The empire began to decline towards the end of Aurangzeb's reign. The reasons for the decline are: the chieftains became corrupt, intense fighting took place among the claimants to the throne. The provincial governors took advantage of the situation and declared their independence. Aurangzeb's desire to convert India into an Islamic state met with opposition everywhere. The prolonged warfare with the Sikhs and the Rajputs and the Marathas fully exhausted the resources of the empire. In the meanwhile, Nadir Shah, a Persian invader, raided Delhi. He looted the wealth by the Mughals over a period of 2 centuries. He carried away the world-famous Kohinoor diamond and the peacock throne of Shah Jahan. The treasury of the Mughals became empty. So these were the reasons behind the decline of the Mughal Empire. With that, we complete the Mughal Empire. Let us quickly discuss the important points to remember. Important points to remember. Babur was the founder of the Mughal dynasty. Humayun ascended the throne after Babur. Humayun faced defeat at the hands of the Afghan chieftain Sher Shah Suri. Akbar, he was Humayun's son. He aspired to build a vast empire in India. Rana Pratap Simha of Mewar opposed Akbar. A fierce battle took place between Rana and Akbar at Haldi Ghat. Rana was defeated in the battle. Administration. He withdrew the personal tax called jizya, which was imposed by the earlier Muslim kings on Hindus. It was framed by his revenue minister Raja Todarman. Religious policies of Akbar. He constructed a prayer hall, Ibadat Khana, in his new capital, Fatehpur Sikri. He invited Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, Parsi, and Christian leaders to discuss their views on religious issues and evolved a new sect called the Din-e-Ilahi. Patronage to arts. Akbar patronized literature and art. Abul Fasil, Faisi, and Birbal were the distinguished poets in his court. The immortal singer Tansen adorned his court. Shah Jahan built the famous Taj Mahal at Agra, the Red Fort at Delhi, and other stately palaces. Aurangzeb, he was the son of Shah Jahan. He was the last well-known Mughal emperor. He ruled it for a long period of 50 years. During this period, the empire expanded in all directions, but at the end, it declined rapidly. Religious policies of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb was an orthodox Muslim. He gave up the liberal policy of Akbar and he also reimposed jizya. Rebellions. The Sikhs and the Rajputs strongly opposed Aurangzeb in North India. Shivaji rose in revolt in the Deccan. Aurangzeb died in the Deccan, and with his death, the Mughal Empire was greatly weakened. Decline of the Mughal Empire. The chieftains became corrupt. Intense fighting took place among the claimants to the throne. The provincial governors took advantage of the situation and declared their independence. Aurangzeb's desire to convert India into an Islamic state met with opposition everywhere. The prolonged warfare with the Sikh, the Rajputs, and the Marathas completely exhausted the resources of the empire. In the meanwhile, Nadir Shah, a Persian invader, raided Delhi. He looted the wealth by the Mughals over a period of 2 centuries. He carried away the world-famous Kohinoor diamond and the peacock throne of Shah Jahan. The treasury of the Mughals became empty. So this led to the decline of the Mughal Empire. We now move on with the assignment. Answer the following. Who was the founder of the Mughal dynasty? Name the Rajput king who opposed Akbar. Where is Taj Mahal? Who constructed it? Write a short note on the religious policies of Akbar. What are the causes for the decline of the Mughal dynasty? Match the following: Babur, prayer hall, revenue minister of Akbar, Red Fort, immortal singer in Akbar's court. So please match column B in accordance with column A. With that, we complete the 2 chapters, children, Wadayars of Mysuru and the Mughal Empire. I'll meet you with 2 other new lessons in the next session. Till then, please complete the assignment and take care of yourself. Thank you. Have a nice day.